Chief Edwin Clark was a vocal proponent of restructuring Nigeria to address imbalances in governance and resource allocation. Notably, he consistently called for implementation of the CONFAB, the 2014 CONFAB. So how do you think his contribution to the national discourse has influenced, the current discussion on the federalism or true federalism in the country?
That was one of the paradoxes in Chief Edwin Clark's life. That's why I refer to it as paradox. Because in 1966, when there was a confab call to see if there could be a kind of confederation in Nigeria, to start looking at options of confederation, Edwin Clark led a group of people that went against any form of confederation. Confederation means, confederating is having some sort of serious independence on their own. But coming back now to start championing almost 50 years down the line, or 50 years down the line, coming to now champion federalism and restructuring is kind of antithetical to what he stood for in 1966. But, I won't, you won't hold him responsible for that. Because the Nigeria of the 60s is not the Nigeria of the millennia. So I think by benefit of the hindsight was that the trajectory of our political and socioeconomic growth between that period to the period now he started agitating for true federalism were quite different. The Nigeria of the 60s was very comfortable with what we had because the region, the way they were totally federal, because they were kind of enjoying some sort of economic independence from the center, not what we have in Abuja now, what we have existing now, where the federated units go to Abuja every month, cap in hand, begging for what they call federal allocation. So it's not supposed to be. So maybe that is why now in 2014 I said, no, we have to go back to what we had in the 60s. And that is why we are where we are today, where we are stagnated. So for them who saw Nigeria work, between 60s, 70s, knew that we needed to go back to, and that is why he was very vociferous about it and advocated for true federalism, because that is the only way Nigeria can truly grow. And he stood by that, fought for that, even till the end.
Right. Now, would you say that he achieved his dream before he passed, because he stood for justice, equity, environmental issues? He championed the call for environmental issues, especially he was an activist and all of it, especially for the Igboke people and all of that. There are those who say that his passing, he didn't necessarily see what he was championing for. But from your perspective, do you think that he got that?
Yes, I think he got that because he himself said it. When he was in his 90th birthday, he said something about being fulfilled, that most of the things he fought for and championed for in his lifetime, that he feels fulfilled as a man in his 90 years old then. So he's fulfilled because the quest for freedom, the quest for the precepts of what he was fighting for, are not things that it's not a sprint dash, it's a marathon. And you would say, and it's also a marathon that has to do with a relay race where you give the baton to the next person. He has done his own, and he has done very well. And he has succeeded in advocacy for it. First of all, it was a rallying point, especially after the death of Sarah. Well, the Igboke people were kind of, when they speak somehow, they were not, they were afraid. He and this other good old lady, I think Mrs. Briggs, and some other people came together to find a new force. And you can see that it was a rallying point. Remember sometime in the late 90s where the agitations by youth in the Niger Delta started, where they now started having so many militant groups and all those things. He was also one of the people that tried to midwife and make sure that amnesty happened, there was peace returned. And remember the wins they had, the onshore dichotomy issue was also solved. These were some of the advocacies they had. The derivation revenue for oil producing areas were also, remember that because of those advocacy, they created the old UMPADEC, which later turned to NDDC. And so all these things are quick wins for the Niger Delta people. I remember the court cases that international IOCs, we had judgments they got against them. Remember the efforts to clean up the Ogoni land, the crusade against spillage of oil. These are things that were even taken beyond the shores of Nigeria. So they had a lot of wins, because if they didn't do those advocacies, perhaps nothing would have ever happened at all. So for those saying that they didn't have, they achieved a lot. But it's as I said earlier, it's a marathon. And the next generation will take over from him and see how they finally succeed in making sure that we have true federalism in Nigeria, and the Niger Delta deserves a share.